This is the sound of terror. A young man's final moments on Earth captured over the phone as he realized something horrible was happening to him. But as soon as he lets out a scream, the line goes dead and nobody knows what happened next. Hi, I'm here to talk about true crime. Today we're talking about the chilling midnight call that ended in silence, the disappearance of Brandon Swanson. Let's begin at the beginning. On May 2008, Brandon Swanson was celebrating. School was finally out for the summer, and he and his friends decided to mark the occasion by going to a local bar. It was a popular place, frequented by both teens and college students, and that Friday night, it was hopping. Brandon arrived at the bar around 9 p.m. and stayed for a couple of hours drinking with his buddies. At some point during the evening, they left the bar and drove to a nearby convenience store. Surveillance footage shows them arriving and buying some snacks and drinks. Then they got back in their vehicle and headed home. Brandon's father, Jerry, got a phone call from his son around 11:45 p.m., asking him for a ride. According to Jerry, he and his wife, Tammy, were getting ready for bed when the phone rang. They let it go to voicemail since they assumed it was another prank call. Brandon had been in high school the year before and had gotten his number. When he didn't get any calls, he checked the voicemail and listened to the message. He said, "Hey, Dad, it's Brandon. I'm stuck in the ditch. Can you come get me?" So they got in the car and drove out into the dark country roads looking for their son. The drive from their home to where they thought Brandon was stranded took about 20 minutes. When they arrived, they saw Brandon's vehicle stuck in a ditch, but he wasn't there. There were signs that someone had tried to dig the car out and the doors were wide open. The windows were rolled up and there was no sign of a struggle. And even though the car was only about a quarter mile from their house, there was no way Brandon would have been able to walk all the way back home without them seeing him. Jerry called out into the darkness, "Brandon, are you out there?" But there was no reply. When they couldn't find Brandon, Jerry and Tammy got back into their car and began searching the area. After a few minutes, they spotted a pair of headlights in the distance and drove toward them. As they got closer, they recognized it was Brandon's friend, who told them he and Brandon had gotten separated when they realized the car was stuck in the ditch. He had walked to a nearby gas station to call for help, but by the time he got back, Brandon was gone. Jerry and Tammy continued searching until 3 a.m. without finding their son. They reported him missing and waited anxiously for the police to arrive. When they did, they asked if Brandon had been drinking, and they said that they knew he had. An officer responded by saying, "I'm sure he just drank too much and wandered off somewhere. He'll show up in the morning." They didn't take either of Brandon's friends or his cell phone, which might have helped them track him down. They didn't even do a full sweep of the area where the car had been stuck. Throughout the morning, Brandon's parents called his friends and everyone they knew he'd been with the night before, but nobody had seen him. Jerry kept calling Brandon's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Eventually, the police arrived and began an investigation. At first, they focused on Brandon's friends, questioning them about where they last saw him. They looked at surveillance footage from the convenience store and saw that Brandon had been buying some wine and snacks with two of his friends. According to them, the last time they saw Brandon was when they dropped him off at the bar at around 11:15 p.m. They claimed he had wanted to get more alcohol, but they didn't stick around to make sure he got home safely. This timeline didn't add up for Brandon's parents. If he was dropped off at the bar, how did he end up with his car stuck in a ditch less than a half mile from his house? And why was his car unlocked with his doors open like that? Surely he wouldn't have done that himself. One thing the police did discover was that Brandon must have made some other calls after the one to his parents because he wasn't in the general vicinity of the bar when those calls were placed. They traced the calls to a spot near where his car was found. The police also discovered that Brandon's phone died sometime between 12:15 and 12:37 a.m. But they weren't able to figure out why or where he was when it happened. After the initial interviews, the police pretty much gave up, assuming that Brandon had simply run away from home and would turn up soon. But as days turned into weeks with no sign of their son, Jerry and Tammy knew something else had happened. So they hired a private investigator. They searched the area where Brandon's car was found with cadaver dogs. But despite spending thousands of dollars, they came up empty. Weeks turned into months, then years. There was no sign of Brandon, and the case went cold. In 2016, 5 years after Brandon's disappearance, the FBI joined the search, bringing in more resources and fresh eyes on the case. But even they couldn't find any answers. So what happened to Brandon Swanson? Was he kidnapped? If so, why would his abductors leave him in the middle of nowhere? Did he get lost and injured and then die? Or was something more sinister at play? Sadly, we may never know. What we do know is that the police made a lot of mistakes that may have hindered the investigation. They didn't treat this as a disappearance right away. Instead, they assumed that Brandon simply ran away, even though there was no evidence to support this. They didn't question his friends thoroughly or search the area where his car was found. And they didn't even hold on to his cell phone, which could have led them to more clues. And as time went on, more clues were lost. Witnesses forgot small details. Surveillance footage was deleted. Evidence was destroyed, which is often the case in unsolved missing persons cases. It's tragic that Brandon's case was no different. All these years later, his parents are still looking for answers. They hold on to hope that one day they'll find out what happened to their son. And maybe one day they will. But until then, this haunting phone call will continue to echo in their ears. As for the call itself, all of us here at the channel have had our share of creepy phone calls, but none that quite match the horror of Brandon's final moments on Earth. Maybe it was just some random guy making a prank call, but it's hard not to imagine that there's more to the story. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I've been your host. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and join our community. We have another channel where we share even more about the creepy things that can happen to you in everyday life. Check it out, and I'll see you next time.